Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Patriot Underground. Thank you so much for joining me to discover the truth beneath the surface. Today is June 25th, 2021. So before we get going tonight, a heartfelt thank you to all of you who have been stopping by to listen and for continuing to support my vision for the platform. So many of you have been inspirational to me in so many different ways, it's impossible for me to list all of them. I'm getting so many emails and messages now. And this really does continue to fuel my passion to bring you analysis of all that we're encountering as we move forward day after day in this process of the Great Awakening. And as I've been getting to know so many of you, I've come to the determination that your dreams are my dreams and my struggles have been your struggles. And therefore, our triumphs and our setbacks we have and will continue to share. All of you stand out amongst all the others around you because of your dedication to the truth. There is no force that will cause your commitment to waver. Over the years, you've faced incredible odds just to get to this moment. The world constantly conspired to defeat your spirit before you even knew you were under attack. But you fought back against an invisible enemy you didn't even understand. You just fought for survival against a spiritual attack that others around you never could have survived, much less have been strengthened by it as you have. You were up against a force that wanted you to surrender. You didn't know to who or what, but you fought back because you don't surrender. It's not in your character. You're not built that way. And it would take years before you would come to understand who the enemy was. And once you did, you told those around you only to realize how alone you really were. You thought your loved ones would want to know the truth, especially from someone they love and trust. But you found out that even love has its limitations when it comes to awakening others. So you sought out others who thought like you. And ultimately, you ended up here. And of course, in other places. But you ended up here, you heard my voice, and decided to stay and hear me speak what's on your mind and in your heart. I heard the calling deep in my soul to reach out with my voice and begin a platform for the people, and to be loyal to the true source of power, which is the people, the most ancient and purest form of God's expression and love, humanity. I believe we were brought together by cosmic and divine intervention. We were born into a broken world, spending years mourning it while not yet knowing we would be the ones to fix it. We would be the ones to replace hate and cynicism with love, empathy, and compassion. We would be the ones to learn the truth so we could teach it to the world when the time was right. And as we feel that time approaching, we gather together to sharpen our discernment, to fortify our faith, and strengthen our resolve to see this mission through to the end. And this is important, to be strong while others are falling apart. And to teach the world to rise above fear through faith in Almighty God. We will be the ones to lead our world into faith in our Creator and in each other once again. And in so doing, we will build a better world together. So all the paths we had to travel were to prepare us for our moment. The rest of the world may not know it yet, but we are approaching a crossroads in history where the entire direction of human civilization will be changed, where we will bear witness to the transition from dark to light and the perfection of a plan set in motion more than 50 years ago to save the world from destruction. We walk a narrow and righteous path amidst a broken world full of danger, especially for those who dare to think for themselves. But we've accepted that. We've accepted that danger because we know that if we don't stand up to evil, who will? Who will for our children and for their children and all human life into the future? If we don't, they'll be doomed to a fate of slavery, of pedophilia, of torture, extermination. We stand together in defiance of their evil and are each willing to pay whatever price is necessary to maintain our way of life and to protect the survival of our species. So our journey has been a lonely one in many ways, and I've talked a lot about this. But the closer we get to the storm, the less alone we feel. We can sense it coming, and we can feel the consciousness of all our fellow patriots rising up a standard against this satanic force. And we will prevail because it was always God's intention for us. And thankfully, enough of us chose a timeline of ascension to enable that miracle to occur. And I'm so honored to be here, even in a small way, to guide others through this process. And I feel as if I'm in the best company in the world when speaking to my audience. All of you are the salt of the earth, and without you, this dark world would have been consumed altogether. So God bless each of you, and please remember how important you are to this fight. You wouldn't be listening to me and others if you weren't called to listen and to be a part of this. Pray to God to lead, guide, and direct you, as I do every day, to do His will and to take steps in the direction of your passion. And if you do that, the Heavenly Father will do the rest. He'll put the wind in the sails that you set. All right. So, what's going on in the world right now? Let's switch gears a little bit here. Very strange circumstances surrounding the death of John McAfee, of course. I'm sure you've heard about this. I guess his family is calling for a massive investigation into his apparent suicide. And apparently, he was awaiting extradition to the United States in Spain, I believe on tax evasion charges. And he was tweeting out saying that he was going to name names and specifics, and that if anything happened to him, he was going to release over 30 terabytes of incriminating data on all the three-letter agencies and others. And he also tweeted several times that he was a target and that he would never kill himself, etc. So this looks very much like it could have been a Clinton-style, Epstein-style suiciding to prevent McAfee from testifying in open court against the cabal. A lot of folks are questioning that and seem certain that's the case. Actually, MonkeyWorks has a great video out right now with some interesting theories based on the flight patterns, of course, including that McAfee could be alive, so definitely check that out. We've also been hearing that the World Health Organization and the CDC, a lot of insiders are suggesting they are going to be dismantled. And of course, they're owned by the cabal, the Rockefellers, and Big Pharma. They're not there for the people. We all know that. And all the information coming from these agencies will be exposed to be outright lies and really crimes against humanity. We already know that over 150,000 people have died from the vaccine that have been unreported. only 6,000 deaths have been reported. So once again, we see the mainstream media aiding and abetting this fraud, which I believe ultimately will lead to many military tribunals for media heads, as well as those in leadership positions who have been lying about the vaccine and coercing and even forcing people to get it and covering up the truth about the devastation that it's causing. And the devastation we have seen really is nothing in comparison to what's coming, I believe. And of course, I'm not alone in that assessment. Now, reportedly, 70% of Americans have received at least one shot. And the real doctors out there telling the truth predict the real consequences will start to happen between 4 and 24 months after people get their shots. So we're still in the very early stages of what will unfold. And I think that as patriots, our main focus needs to be on protecting ourselves as best we can from the spike proteins. Now, if you've been listening to my show for a while, you'll remember my initial reaction to when the news broke about the vax spike protein. I mean, my initial reaction was basically anger and disbelief. And even after I got beyond the disbelief phase, I still dragged my heels because I didn't want to believe that there was yet another thing for me to worry about. And I certainly didn't like hearing that my decision to avoid the vaccine wasn't going to be enough to guarantee my safety from the biological weapon, which is the shot. But as time has gone on and I've continued to research and hear from insiders, I've accepted that this is a real threat that we need to protect ourselves from. It just is. So to that end, I'm researching. I'm actually researching a lot of different ways to be proactive in terms of preventing your body from getting attacked by these spike proteins. Chief among those is the pine needle tea, which I'm sure you've heard about. It's been widely publicized in alternative media since this information came out as a very effective way to do that. And there are many others. And I myself have actually ordered some pine needle tea. And I've also talked about other research that I'm doing into different ways to take control of my own health. So I think we need to be proactive in researching for ourselves ways to protect ourselves from this threat. So that's what I'm doing. And I've talked at length before about the importance of becoming educated about our health in an effort to distance ourselves from a system that's designed to keep us sick and dependent on their symptom management medications rather than teaching us how to avoid sickness and disease, because it's not in their financial interest to do so. And because their conquest of humanity is ultimately rooted in economics, we can see how money is tied to big pharma and dictates the type of care that you get. It's a system designed to kill and not heal. And I believe the Great Awakening will mark the public acknowledgement of that truth. I mean, people have lived their entire lives trusting their doctors rather than trusting their own intuition. And this vaccine issue is highlighting that better than anything ever could, in my opinion. But once it comes out that Fauci and the entire WHO and CDC and all these different agencies are all corrupt to the core and evil, folks are going to need education on how to create a real healthcare system instead of the disease manufacturing / management one that we have now. And there are even reports I've heard from both Charlie Ward and Sherry Ray that the banks have been informing some folks, I'm not sure in which countries, that they're being informed that if they took the jab, then their life and health insurance can't be renewed. And there are also news reports that insurance companies will not be insuring flights with pilots who have received vaccinations. So as all this continues to come out and gets increasingly worse, more and more people are getting red-pilled along the way and realizing what they actually stuck inside their body. And by the way, on the topic of Fauci, there are a number of reports that have been circulating recently saying that he was arrested in June and that the military caught him trying to flee to property that he owned overseas, I think in Argentina, and that he netted $9 million from vaccine sales and was really the COVID mass murder mastermind. And I keep wondering if his arrest will be the one which shocks the world because of all the drumbeat leading up to it. But we'll have to see, of course. But I've also heard that Fauci was dealt with a while ago, I think over a year ago, by Charlie Ward. And this really is just the pantomime rolling it out to the public. So we've only been told who it's not in terms of the person that's going to get arrested and shock the world. We've only been told who it's not rather than who it is, of course. Specifically Obama, by the witness who testified, forgot her name. Well, she testified recently. I spoke about her in a recent podcast. She testified about her abuse at one of the military tribunals that I believe are still ongoing, at least last I heard. And of course, now we have the military being sent to Washington, D.C. for yet a third time, accompanied by a host of cryptic videos suggesting a main event. But we've seen a lot of those types of videos before, so I don't like to base any of my speculation on that per se, but it's getting a lot of buzz with the reports of that buildup yet again. So we'll have to see what happens. But DC is a ghost town. It has been a ghost town for a while. It's been shown to be empty when events were said to have been taking place, as demonstrated brilliantly by Richard, citizen journalist. So why more military activity now? Why all the Blackhawks constantly circling the Capitol? Why the B-52 bombers hovering over DC 24/7? Why all the strange aircraft activity? There's certainly been so much to observe in the months since the election in DC. Oh yeah, I forgot about the flooding of the tunnels. I mean, you could literally write a book. In fact, I'm sure several are already in the process. But there's nobody there. It's not business as usual. And likewise, Hollywood is also reportedly a ghost town. So even people hitting the snooze button are having to try harder and harder and harder to keep themselves under the trance. Because the mainstream media narrative just keeps unraveling more and more and more and more each day. And as I've said many times before, you have to be willfully ignorant at this point to believe all the lies. And as Gina said, people are programmed that way because they don't want to change or disrupt their lives or accept accountability for anything. And that's why this is taking as long as it is. Humanity stands up collectively. This is over in 5 minutes. But it's the fact that we can't do this. That's the problem. That's the problem the Alliance has been dealing with this entire time. However, we have reached a point where human action and raising our consciousness together is the key to unlocking it all. So here we are together doing just that and encouraging our fellows to take up their digital weaponry and do the same. This is war. And people don't know we're in a war because they don't understand the weaponry as we do. We get the silent weapon. They don't. But soon, very soon, in my opinion, it'll be up to us to teach them how it all worked so that they can become part of the new world that our vision will manifest. We already are the new leadership. The public just doesn't know it yet. And many of us don't either. But there have been so many disclosure drips. There are too many to even get into. They've talked about, I think it was Sherry Ray that talked about weather weapons that have been used against us. And many of these are from the CCP, by the way. She also, I think, mentioned that Raytheon and Lockheed are amongst the biggest players in the chemtrailing and, of course, the weather-related attacks. So all the wildfires, the hurricanes, etc., really, over the past decade or so, really need to be called into question. I'm hoping we can get more information on this technology as we move forward. I'm sure we will. To demonstrate to the public that this was just another silent weapon. In terms of where it came from, of course, not in terms of its impact. Don't get me wrong. But these silent weapons have been in development since really World War II. And I've discussed this on my series on both Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars and the Montauk Project. You see, all the evil that began in the wake of World War II and the good that rose up against it, starting with President Kennedy, has come to a head at the moment we're living through right now. I mean, it is truly an epic time to be alive and watch the world right on the cusp of such amazing change. Just think about how much better we are making the world for our children and for future generations. Think of how amazing the coming world will be. And thank God you were given the chance to be here and to do your small part. You want to call it small, you want to think of it as small, big, whatever. To do your part to help make it happen in a way that nobody else could because you're unique. To manifest God's vision for humanity in our lifetime. I think about what an honor it is, and there are really no words to describe it. The fact that God saw fit to have us here right now to answer the call to fight for freedom and justice and decency, to usher love and respect and compassion back into the world, and to help others adjust along the way to the new world. What an amazing blessing. And on that same topic, Nasara and Jasara are already being rolled out. Reports are coming out of Iraq that bank loans and mortgages are being forgiven. And this is the future for all of us. We're going to live in a world of financial freedom, abundance for all, miracle medical breakthroughs. And that's just the beginning. Just keep praying and asking God what to do each day, and the answers will come. I believe that He has heard our prayers and answered them. I believe that God is only getting started with humanity, and all that needed to happen was for us to make a choice to love ourselves and love one another, and to reject the traps designed to lead us to our own destruction. But we did make that choice. And now we have to wait on the Lord, as Lynn Wood often says. But nothing worth having comes easy. And when we realize just how massive this is, people will understand why it took so long to achieve and what we were up against. All right, folks, thank you so much for listening. God bless each and every one of you. Please do everything you can to support the channel. Donate on PayPal or Patreon if you can. Please hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share the links, and I'll be back soon, God willing, with another report. Until then, God bless each and every one of you. Patriot out.